Blessed be the persistent. May we honor our routines. Blessed be the audacious. May we take risks. Blessed be the humble. May we learn to fail and learn from failure. Blessed be the curious. May we play and discover. Blessed be community. May we turn toward each other.
I sold my soul to the wolf god, knowing that the end was coming, and I would need strength and cunning to survive. So alive, liquid moonlight slides over blood on my fur, alpha musculature, limitless, mouth full of nightmares, bayonets on my fingertips, no fear, no friends, no family, no witnesses. My mission is survival over rivals and competitors, the apex predator, the king of the wasteland, solitary sovereign. My subjects, whatever flesh I press my claws in. Yeah, the first few months of the apocalypse were everything I wanted. But now I wonder where it all went. These humans are so weak. I haven't seen one for weeks, but I smell them and my stomach speaks. As I learn how to hunt, they learn how to hide. I killed so many, but they survived and I died. Respawn and remember, the chorus always returns. Why does this apocalypse feel so familiar? How many deaths till I learn my way back, yeah, my way home, my way home. The second time I faced the end of the world, I sold my soul to the tortoise god and built a bunker in the mountains with years of canned food, ammunition, and supplies. After 1 month, choked on some jerky and died. The third time I faced the end of the world, I sold my soul to the spider god and preyed on lone travelers until one lone traveler's family found me. I burned with my own web wrapped around me. Fourth time I faced the end of the world, I sold my soul to the bear god and just tried to hibernate through it. It worked. I made it further than the other runs, but never stopped to wonder further toward what. The fifth time I faced the end of the world, I sold my soul to the snake god, eyes bottomless, wore a nice suit, spoke with a lot of confidence on his podcast. He said men needed to be dominant and just take what we want and then forget the consequences. Just be cynical, the stoic, the mythical, the rugged individual. Unlike those immigrants, trans people, and criminals, you'll be one real man, under God, indivisible. I listened, I bought all of the supplements, put every attribute point I had into toughness, learned other people with dead weight, so I was all alone when the end came, and all alone there's no escape. Respawn and remember, the chorus always returns. Why does this apocalypse feel so familiar? How many deaths till I learn my way back, yeah, my way home, my way home. The next time I face the end of the world, I won't sell my soul. I'll give it freely away. To everyone I love, I will give thanks, cause it was never individual strength that dictates who makes it. It took humility and patience to learn. No apocalypse is final or first. A new one every minute. We learn from who survived. We learn from those who didn't. We learn to live with limits, and we learn how to hear the music of a world as it's breaking. The question was never whether this is the end or not. It's what kind of end will we make it? I never learned much, but with help I learned how to hear the music of a world as it's breaking. The question was never whether this is the end or not. It's what kind of end will we make it?
So, how many here and anywhere in the room have played a video game ever? Yes, okay, yes, okay, yes, video games. So the piece we just heard is called roguelike. And I wonder if any of you who do play video games, maybe on the regular, have heard that term before. Anyone? Yes, okay. I did not know this when I picked this song. I just liked the song. Does anyone know what it is? Does anybody want to tell me what a roguelike is? Yeah. Yes. So Ben said a roguelike is a game where every time you die, it completely resets and you have to start over at the beginning. A couple of my other folks who had their hands up want to add anything to what a roguelike is? Yes?
Well, it plays similarly to the game Road
Yes. Yes. Yes, it is based on a game from the, I think you're right, like late 80s Rogue, where you basically, it's ASCII text and you're just moving a little like typed character around a screen by using the arrow keys because like, did it predate mouse use? It might, no, it didn't. No, okay. Those are true text-based adventures. Hi, your minister is Generation X. Welcome. So those are some pretty good examples. It is a specific kind of video game. I looked up and found a definition that was agreed to at a video game developer conference, actually specifically a roguelike developer conference in 2008, because even though they started a long time ago before graphics-based games, they continue. There are factors that are agreed to at the conference to assign these values. These values are of high importance to determine that a game is a roguelike. Randomly generated environment that increases replayability. And the biggie, permadeath. When your character dies, your character dies. It doesn't go back to its last save point or anything like that. You restart, and the whole idea of the randomly generated environment is every time you go through the game, it's different. A little. At least enough to make it interesting and ideally to keep you trying again and again. It's turn-based. You can make one move, one command on your keyboard or one entry into your handheld device is one movement. You are not continually moving the way a lot of modern video games are, that you're running and shooting at the same time, right? Grid-based, so the earliest roguelikes were, in fact, these text and ASCII art-based things. So everything is plotted on a grid. Every place where a monster could spawn takes up one square of the grid, and they may change. The monster will always be the same. They may pop up anywhere. Non-modal. There are not modes of play. There's not the part of the game where you're going to the shop and no one can kill you. There's not the part of the game where you're, I don't know, taking a nice walk in the woods and no one can kill you. You're always, all actions are available to each player at all times during the game. A level of complexity high enough to ensure that any problem has multiple solutions. Resource management, player must know how to best use items and energy. Hack and slash, the point is for the player to kill a lot of monsters, even though there may be other tasks. The game is always player versus world, not cooperative. And exploration and discovery. A high value is placed on every player exploring the environment and determining the use of unidentified items. What's this? You want to ask yourself in a roguelike all the time. So, those are only the ones that are considered important. There were like pages of this. So people who have played these kinds of video games, and if you're not sure if it checks all the boxes, but if you've played that kind of video game where you have to try again and again to solve the puzzle, or every time you stop your character, every time your character is killed, you have to go back to the beginning. What kind of emotions does that bring up? You can shout this out. You raise your hand so I can actually repeat them for I was going to say shout it out, but then I want to repeat them for folks on Zoom. So what are some emotions you feel when you play these kinds of games? Frustration. Is that what you're going to say, Beth? Okay, frustration. But are you curious enough to keep going? Sometimes. Paul?
So it's almost as good as playing chess.
It's almost as good as playing chess, right? Right? So it's similar, right? Like there's thousands of, what is the statistic on the number of chess games that exist in the universe? That's a whole other thing. But yeah, any other emotional things you feel when you have to just keep starting over and they're asked to get curious again and again? Yes. Freedom to learn. Yes. Awesome. I mean, yes, as if I'm going to say someone's answer is wrong. This is your personal experience, right? So that's one of the things that I wanted to point out. They ask us to stay curious and not get frustrated. Although that's on the game developer, right? Like the balance of a game, is it challenging enough? If it's going to be challenging, it's going to frustrate you, but is it inviting enough to your curiosity to have you keep going? So there are a lot of games where there's maybe only one solution. But there are also a lot of games where there's many ways to solve the problem and win the game. And there are games like Minecraft, hands up for Minecraft, anybody play Minecraft? Yes. Where you don't have to win anything. You can just like be in Minecraft. I mean, you can also go and you can build stuff and do stuff and hang out. Minecraft is an immersive world where people online from all over the world can hang out and do stuff that isn't about winning. It's about connecting. So you're there to try stuff out and also indulge your curiosity a little bit. So, and that's one reason that I chose today to light our chalice with a prayer for artists and creatives, because today is all about questions and curiosity. So everything that we create starts with a question of some kind. Maybe it's, what do I want? What do I need? What shall we build? How do I fix this? What do I draw with my sidewalk chalk? What do I make for dinner? So what's that squiggle mean? What does that squiggle mean? Yeah, exactly. The thing in the game, like, do I use this candlestick for a candle or as a blunt weapon? Yeah, exactly. We go through today's celebration of questions. I'd like you to think about, everyone here, not just the people who thank you for sitting up front, think about and imagine what kind of questions you would most like to answer, and think about the fun of getting to the answer to some of your questions.
Our reading this morning is Blessing Circles by Kyle Tran Myrie. Before the performance begins, an elder addresses the people. Please remember, this doesn't end in a meaningful way. There's no tidy conclusion waiting for you on the other side. Think of this more like a circle. We know that can be confusing. When we talk about circles, we're not saying you're going to see a bright blue eagle catch a black octopus on Tuesday, and then 30 years later, see the same bright blue eagle catch the same black octopus. It's not a literal thing. But not everything that is real is literal. Not everything that isn't literal isn't real. Don't be angry at a story because it isn't a map. There's more than one way to share information, more than one way to navigate being lost. A circle is always breaking, never broken. Please remember that metaphors aren't always neat, linear, mathematical equations. Please remember that the answer isn't the only valuable part of the process of asking a question, that the ending isn't the only part of the story we can draw meaning from. Please remember to pick up after yourselves. This is our community, after all. Please remember that words have power. Please remember to have fun.
So it's time for the questions. So Russ, if you have a slip of paper where you asked a question, Russ is going to come around and collect those from you right now. Maybe do like what Sean is doing, hold up your slips so we can, so that we can see them. We also have some that have been submitted throughout. Am I on? Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I was like making sure I'm hearing myself, which is a weird thing to say. Yes, so the question box service, while Russ picks up those couple of questions from those who have written them down on a slip of paper, and I make sure that I have the spreadsheet where we collected your other queries. Sorry, one literally just popped into the spreadsheet and I'm like, all right, this is gonna be great. This is gonna be great. And I have a few opening words here while we collect those. We are a seeking kind of faith. Unitarian Universalism does hold very dearly to its questions. The tradition of the question box, thank you. The tradition of the question box sermon goes back to, I have no idea. Googling was not helpful. And I did actually make a post in one of our Facebook groups to ask my colleagues, and I don't know. So, I mean, that's a whole research project I could do another day, but let me tell you that in the last 2 days, I can't tell you where these came from. When you Google around about it, you get search results with church web pages showing upcoming question box services or archives of recording and transcripts of old ones. But asking questions, being questioners, being seekers, goes all the way back to Origen and Michael Servetus, some of the original thinkers who wrote or spoke in Christian spaces, challenging the doctrine of the Trinity or the very idea of damnation. Our history is full of people who dared to ask, why do we believe this? And so it's been said that the two biggest questions in life are what happens when we die, and given what we consider when we consider that question, how are we to live? So I don't know what questions we have here today. And if those two show up, we'll see if I have managed to figure them out. I have not. I haven't looked at these. I obviously haven't looked at these ahead of time because we just picked them up. And the first two on the Google form, I did look to make sure earlier in the week that I had access to the Google form, but I did not want to prepare answers in advance, so I haven't spent any time with them. I will not be able to answer all of them. I reserve the right not to answer ones that are too personal or perhaps entirely off base, like the one that just got submitted. We will publish a full list of questions asked, whether answered or unanswered, because they can inspire some wonderful conversations that I hope you'll choose to have with one another. So I'm gonna start with one from here, actually.
This one I'm listening to is in Lancaster, actually, this one. The other one was York. But this one is Unitarian.
This is technically two questions.
And I went to one.
How is the UU religion both grounded in and a departure from other religious traditions? And how do we honor our sources of inspiration without appropriating?
Yeah, right.
Both of these are excellent questions. I'll take them in order.
Oh, my
The UU religion, I kind of touched on a little in my opening words. It is grounded in two heretical Christian traditions. Some people would call them Unitarianism comes from those who would reject the doctrine of the Trinity at the Council of Nicaea. And there are also Universalists who were those who that was really a direct response to Calvinism. A direct response to the idea that so few are saved. Rather, Universalists believe that a loving God, the posited and theorized loving God of Christianity, would not send people to hell forever. They had early, Universalists did have kind of almost like a purgatory situation, but there was a sense that eventually you would never be separated from God eternally or be punished in that way. So I think that the grounding is historically found in those places. There are also thinkers that have become Unitarian Universalists from outside of our traditions, which led to, our other sources of inspiration come from everywhere. We had video games and hip hop music, 50th anniversary of hip hop also, in this today's service, which is not perhaps typical. I grew up Catholic, so it feels very, very different to me. And to me, that is it's a departure, but it is also, there's some things we still do, right? We still come together on Sunday mornings for something that we call worship, declaring something of worth. So it is a departure, I think, over time, because it has been so small and needed to survive. It was an issue of expediency to combine in 1961. And so I think that we understand that to remain relevant, we must change. Traditions need to change to stay relevant and meaningful to people throughout time. How do we honor our sources of inspiration without appropriating? I wish I could tell you that in a short answer, but it is an excellent one, and I want you to know this is something that religious professionals, that lay leaders, that people in congregations everywhere struggle with and mess up, and are trying to learn how to enter into reparative times when we do something wrong. I'll pick an example that for many years, I think starting in the 70s, 80s, it was very popular for Unitarian Universalist churches to have a Day of the Dead service. This is actually, we're going to take the ofrenda and some of the actual aspects of Mexican culture, even in congregations with no Mexican American members or Mexican members of the congregation or the surrounding community. And it was sort of like, we like this, so we'll turn it into our own thing. And that is always a line, right? Where is the line? How will we know? And the most important part of that conversation to me is when we don't know about a line or when we cross it, how do we repair the relationship? How do we stay in it? Because we are going to make mistakes. That's not even a question. So the question to that is more questions. How are we going to repair things? And we have to be aware when we do harm. Spreadsheet. There's no really way to randomize this. Wow. Whew. You're going to get to see all of them eventually. I feel like I should take this one because it's the longest, because it's a really great idea. We only have so much time. How may we as individuals and as a congregation participate in the evolution of our human species into a life form that values cooperation over confrontation, celebrates our differences, and loves our planetary home more than our individual possessions? I wish I knew. And I think it goes back to what I just said. We gather as individuals on individual spiritual journeys. None of us knows exactly what the other person has in their mind or their heart when we say God, or when we get a strange feeling in our head when we hear someone say God, or in our heart, right? No one knows what your individual spiritual path is, so why do we come together? And I think that is how maybe by coming together as a congregation, as individual seekers, saying, there are things that unsettle us, that trouble us, and can we try out ways of being together that are different than the ways that have not served us? Celebrate our differences. Cooperation over confrontation. Confrontation, I'll note, is different from being able to sit there and say, conflict, right? Sometimes conflict is healthy and generative, but confrontation, to me, the connotation is one of, I'm just going to say you're wrong and not actually be willing to enter into a dialogue with you, right? So I think, again, and loving our planetary home more than individual possessions? Talk to the Green Action Team. Talk to the people who are trying to do this in a very real and meaningful way. So back to these. I'm really not going to get to them, any of these. Okay. What advice about UUCYork would you give our next minister? So for those of you who are new or who don't know, I am on a contract which ends next July. So by this time next year, you will have a new minister. And actually, this is also a part of how this process works. We encourage all new ministers who are looking for new positions, and this all is going to kind of begin January 2nd, 2024, which is everybody who's looking, congregations and ministers, kind of all jumps into the big pot and goes, who wants what? What are you looking for? What are you looking for? How can we match you? And what we always ask people to do is call the current minister. Please reach out. We all have web pages for our congregations where you can see who the minister is. And we always, always, always ask, call and ask. Who was the most recent minister? Who were the ministers that served before that minister? I will hopefully not be the only person who gets talked to about this congregation, but I am eager and ready to talk to people about this amazing place. So the advice that I would give to anyone asking about here is, don't come here in the middle of a pandemic. That made it really hard to get to know people and form genuine relationships, because that is what I will say. This work is relational work. I can do all the meetings and all the planning and all of the pretty words that I want to do, but it really comes down to getting to know the people you serve and getting to know the place where you live. And so I want people to take real curiosity here. There are amazing people here. Talk to them. I can give you lists of people to talk to the lay leaders. And the advice is, visit here a couple times before you decide where to live. Picking out an apartment, like I love where I live, and also I feel kind of separate, and also, right, like, so spend some time here. Come see this place, come see the space, the grounds, the labyrinth, all those things, and stay curious. I'm trying to be mindful of time. We may need to go over because that's how life works. I know I can't answer all of them, but I also don't want to only answer like 3. So, okay, what is the Zoom password? If you are online and asking about a meeting password, it's always 1955. If you are ever trying to get into a UUCYork meeting and it says you need a password to access it, it's always 1955. Just pro tip. If you mean for the account, haha, I'm not telling you. Okay, I feel like I want to mix these up here. Why would a benevolent higher power allow the awful happenings, wars, famine, shootings, etc., to take place? I mean, I don't know. Right, so that to me is one of the gifts of this spiritual community, which is there are as many ideas about what that higher power is or is not as there are people hearing the sound of my voice. There are more, of course, because everyone has their own idea of how, why any of this works. I think the key word here is benevolent, because I think that people have very different relationships, and some of them were formed in the churches that we maybe attended when we were young versus the one we attend now, versus what were we thinking in all of those years where maybe, like me, you didn't attend any church or faith community at all. I was hard atheist for years, because I ran in the opposite direction of my Catholic upbringing. So I completely rejected this whole benevolent higher power thing. And I still reject the benevolent higher power thing. So this really, honestly, I can't answer the question for everyone. I can't answer the general question. I can only say This is what a diverse and multicultural spiritual community hopefully can be, is a place for you to sit with. Were you taught something like this? Does it feel like a betrayal to grow into an adult and feel like there is no benevolent being at the controls of everything? And can you heal that within yourself? My personal theological stance on this is that we all have a sense of connection to something larger than ourselves, that we are called to, as one of the earlier questions say, evolve as a species and create a different kind of world, co-create and imagine a different kind of world, get curious like our Time for All Ages invited us to do. And to try to find in your hearts a way to let go of some of the harmful thought patterns that may be formed within you and set you on a theological path that is going to just lead. This just leads to heartbreak over and over. Because people in the world will break your heart again and again, but it will also break it open. There is beauty, there is gorgeous, benevolent kindness in the world. And it either arises from humans, or it arises from the being that created humans, or it arises from all of us co-creating it together. There's no God. There is humans create God. God creates humans, but it's a kind of a from the grounds up, not a big. There's so many ways to approach it. To me, this is a challenge to heal yourself on your own spiritual path. Go back over here. And since I mentioned the video game, I also I forgot to put it in the order of service. Shout out to Kyle Tran Guante Myri, who is both the artist behind our music, our centering music this morning, and the person who wrote the reading. So he is a poet, artist, spoken word person who is amazing. Just wanted to shout that out. Oh, here, this is an interesting one. And this is one of the ones I saw earlier this week. It's one of the first two that got asked. Is Unitarian Universalism a religion? My comparative religion classes say no. It's fair. It's that word religion that I think trips up a lot of people. And I think absolutely Unitarian Universalism is a faith tradition. It has a deep, rich one. And I think I think Unitarian Universalism is a religion because, and if you're in comparative religion classes, you're going to hear this again. Religion is from Latin words meaning religare, right? To bind or tie together, right? So anything that brings a group of people and ties them together is a religion. Like CrossFit. No, and no, absolutely zero shade on any CrossFitters. Like, it's an awesome organization. It builds amazing community. Is it a religion? And I think the question becomes, to me, religion becomes one of those things that's a question about legality, about whether you get to claim it as your religion, as you get to, is an institution get to claim a tax-exempt status and things like that. So I think that that's a much larger question than can be answered in the space that I want to continue to give to these. And also, so when you're in a comparative religion class, it brings up a lot. And so this is one of the reasons I want to make sure that you all get a list of all of these questions, because is it? And even if it somehow is determined that this is not a religion, that wouldn't change my feelings, thoughts, and personal emotions about Unitarian Universalism as a faith tradition, as a history, and as an aspirational community of connection. I'm gonna take one more from in here. What about this one? I don't know this word. I can't read this word. Okay. Sure. Tell me what you think this says. Why is PA the blank sweet spot? It looks like ceramic to me, and I don't think that's what was meant.
I was gonna say create, no.
I have no idea.
Acoustic, I don't know.
I don't know. Thank you. Sorry, I mean, and I actually do intend and want to keep these as anonymous as possible, because I want people to feel free, like that they can ask things that they might feel shy or strange about. And so I'm going to set this aside. It's going to be, if you wrote this, please email me at revgen@uucy.org and let me know what your question was, because I would like to know. But I don't want to answer a question that I can't read. So let's try this one. What can this congregation do to attract and then support a minister who is a good fit for us? Know yourselves, be yourselves. Don't be afraid to talk about the things that have worried you on past searches. Be honest with yourselves about what you want a minister to be and to do, knowing that we are human and have limitations and cannot fulfill the hopes and dreams and desires of every single person who has a stake or an interest in who is next. We are people. When you consider signing up with the nominating committee to show your interest in being on the ministerial search committee, if you are serving on the ministerial search committee, talk to people about who they think we are and what they think we'd like and what they think we would respond well to. If you are not on the ministerial search committee, seek out the people who are on the ministerial search committee and have those conversations. Have the conversations. Things that disappointed you or saddened you about any minister that you have ever had in your past, myself on back, and also the things that work. What are the things, if you like me, awesome. What about me, right? Like, my clear facility with words, I don't know, whatever, like whatever you come to, right? Know yourselves. This is, okay. When I was considering ministry in 2014, I went to General Assembly, the annual meeting of the Unitarian Universalist Association in Providence, Rhode Island that year, because my home congregation minister said, if you're considering the ministry, you should go to General Assembly because you get this big immersion in UU culture, and also they're gonna have like workshops and stuff, like, are you curious about being a minister? Which I was. So I went to the workshops, and I went to the full immersion, and I went to the bookstore a lot, and in the bookstore, there was a slender volume, and it said, and the title was, Ministerial Search, like online dating, only worse. I feel like that's the answer. No. When you consider, what am I looking for in a partner or a spouse? Have you ever made a list and like a big checklist and said, I really would love to be with somebody who's this, and then you meet a person who is amazing and astounding and is like none of those things, or maybe one of them? So be open to knowing yourself, what you think you want, what you think this place will respond to, what people have literally responded to well. Talk to a bunch of people and let magic happen. It's already almost 11, y'all. I just needed to give this some time. So thank you. Thank you to everyone who submitted a question. I knew we could not get to all of them. It feels very traditional at every question box service. We love this quote. We love Rilke. We're going to go back to it. So I'll lead us out with, this is a quote from Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. I won't break with that tradition. And the quote is, be patient towards all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers which could not be given to you now because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. Thank you for joining me on this adventure today, and I hope you learn to love your questions. And we will now rise and body your spirit for hymn number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Carry in our hearts until we are together again. All of these questions, all of these concerns, these joys, these sorrows, these are the complex things that make up every community. And whether we're a religion or not, we are a community. So I want you to take those questions and those uncertainties and a great sense of curiosity with you into the week ahead, and so may it ever be.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in